One of the most difficult parts of working out is staying consistent with your workouts. But on this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, we are sharing our framework that is the easiest way to stay consistent with your workouts. We're going to cue our introduction and we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg and Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset, and the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we are tackling the topic of consistency with your workouts. Look, you can only get results from your workouts if you do your workouts, and you can only keep getting results if you keep doing your workouts. And part of that keep doing the workouts aspect is staying consistent with your workouts. Doing workouts for the last 10 years, like once a month, it doesn't really lead to all that much from a positive result standpoint. So we need some consistency with them. We need some frequency, and being able to stay consistent with the frequency of your workouts is key to making sure that you are able to keep getting the results and continue to maintain the results that you already have from your workouts. Today, we want to share a simple framework that we have developed to help you do just that.
That's right. So if you have followed us for any amount of time, you know there's kind of three ways that exercise has the opportunity to change your body, which is what we all exercise for, is to have those positive changes in our body. And that is, we have to challenge your body, we have to recover from that challenge, and we have to return to the challenge, right? And so we're going to talk about today how to return to the challenge more consistently. If you're curious about how to challenge your body, how to recover faster, we actually talked about that last week and in many other podcasts. But today we're going to talk about tackling that issue of, figuring out your schedule, trying to get it, into your life regularly enough that it can make that change. But this is such a critical point because, again, like what Charlie said, once a month workouts, even once a week workouts are usually not enough to make positive change in your body. And so if we're going to do this thing, let's get that consistency up so that we're able to see and enjoy those positive results from exercise.
Absolutely. So for over a decade and a half now, the thing that I have seen to be the case for every single person who exercises on a consistent basis, on a frequent basis, on a regular basis, and does so for an extended period of time. And how I'm defining that is they're exercising at least 3 days a week and have done so for at least a decade. The people who do that have one trait in common. And it doesn't matter whether they are a professional athlete, a CEO of a company, whether they are in their 50s, whether they're in their 80s, whether they're in their 20s, it doesn't matter their age, what their occupation is, how busy their schedule is from one day to the next, what the demands are as far as their time is concerned. There's one thing that they all do in common, and that is they schedule their workouts. They schedule their workouts. They actually put their workouts into their schedule. And then once it's scheduled, it's actually something that gets done. So when it comes to doing your workouts on a consistent basis, the number one thing that we recommend you doing is scheduling your workouts. But there are some ways that you can go about scheduling them that gives you a little bit of leeway in terms of what may also be going on throughout your day and throughout your life to help you get them in on a consistent basis.
You're right, Charlie. Scheduling your workouts is the best way to get in, the consistency. Now, there's not just one way to schedule workouts. There are a couple ways, and you're going to find which way is your style. And once you figure that out, just go for it. The first way is to have rocks in your schedule. Rocks are things that never change. For example, in me and Charlie's life, we have a rock in our schedule. That is, get our daughter to the bus that is going to pick her up between 8:05 and 8:10. So we need to definitely be there between 8:05 and 8:10, no matter what else is going on in our day. That would be an example of a rock. Or you have a scheduled meeting with your coworker or something. That is a scheduled rock. It's not something that is really changing all that much. Once it's scheduled, you know at the time, all that. that is a great way to exercise, especially if you know that there's not going to be changes, or you know you can stick solid with that schedule. Charlie is the best example of a rock schedule for his workouts. I don't know how long, maybe like 10 years now, you've had it in your schedule ever since I've known you to work out at the same exact time every single day.
Now, when people hear the concept of scheduling your workouts, that's usually the thought that comes to people's minds is, okay, it's going to be something that's fixed in my schedule that doesn't change. It's the same time, every single day, every day of the week. And that's where people start to disregard this whole conversation. Like, well, I can't do that because I got X, I got Y, I got Z. And because of those things, like, there's no way that this scheduling will work for me. And so I want to share a different idea when it comes to the rocks. Yes, a rock is something that is in your schedule and everything else then gets filled in around it. Okay, that's kind of like the keystone aspect of your schedule. But there are different ways to go about having rocks. Okay, one way is to say every single day at 1 p.m., I'm going to be working out from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And that's not like it's just fixed, it doesn't change. Another way to have rocks in your schedule is to actually vary them by the day. So maybe on Mondays it's 1 p.m., Tuesdays it's 6 p.m., Wednesdays you go in early at 5 a.m., okay? And so it varies from one day to the next, but it's something that is always there. Now, the other way to have a rock in your schedule is to have it come after a rock that's already in your schedule, okay? What this means is, for example, let's say your mornings are generally like a little bit more free. Okay, let's say your mornings you have a little bit more leeway as far as your commitments are concerned. And okay, well, I generally wake up maybe around say like 6:30 a.m. All right, and from there, like I'm gonna do my morning stuff, and around 8 a.m. is kind of when my day really gets started. And so you can say, all right, well, I know that every single day, like I'm going to be eating breakfast, and I'm generally wrapped up by about 8 a.m. So I'm just going to say that breakfast is a rock in my schedule, and so I'm going to position my workout immediately after breakfast. All right, so you have your rock, and then you're going to say, well, my workout's going to fall immediately after that. All right, and you're not saying, okay, 8:15 every single morning, like that's when I'm going to be working out, but you're saying the rock in my schedule is breakfast. And so after I finish breakfast, that's when I go work out. That can allow you a little bit more free leeway and a little bit more freedom to just kind of take on the day as it comes to you, but still know that, okay, after this event, we call it after scheduling. So after this event, then I'm going to go and do my workout. The flip side of that is called before scheduling, okay, where you are going to, you know that, all right, I want to wrap up breakfast by 8 a.m. and it's generally going to take me about 30 minutes to do that. So I'm going to start around 7:30 and I want to get my workout in before I have breakfast. And so you can have this thing that's a rock in your schedule, which is breakfast, needs to be done hard at stop at 8 a.m. And you want to get your workout in before you start your breakfast. And so that way your workout can become a rock in your schedule happening before this other rock in your schedule.
That's right. Another great example of this just in real life, when I used to work at like a big gym where I saw a lot of people exercising that weren't necessarily my clients, they would come, and make sure they got there before work, right? Let me get my workout in. Let me get dressed and ready, and that always happens right before I go to work. Or I'm coming home from the office or I'm coming home from work and I always hit the gym on my way home. That would be a really great way of saying before and after. It doesn't mean that you always, start and end work exactly at the same time, but you know that they kind of go in order. Now, the big thing with putting something in your schedule is that it means that you have to value that thing enough. And when I was thinking about this, I thought, it's crazy. If you're listening to this podcast, that means you value your health enough to be investing time, right? To figure this thing out. And it doesn't mean that exercise has to be your top priority, but it has to be priority enough. You have to value it enough to get it in. And I say this because at one point in my life, before I had 3 kids at home, I would say that exercise was really high on my priority list. Maybe in the top 3, getting in my workouts. And now I have 3 kids, so it's definitely bumped down 3 points because I always value spending time with my kids over my workouts. But I still value my workouts enough to get it in, right? So it's not saying that like I'm picking my workouts over my kids or I'm picking my workouts over whatever. But things that we value, we have to make time for. Otherwise, it starts feeling like really not aligned with your body. You know, eventually you're like, man, just like, wow, how could I have missed all these things so many times? It's almost like, here's a really good example. When I have a lot of days at home where I'm just with my kids. And when I'm with all 3 kids, the last thing that I want to do is load them in the car and take them somewhere. It is just a lot of work right now. We have a baby, you know, it's a lot. And so I generally am saying, no, we're not going, we're much happier at home. Mommy's more chill, you know, we can hang out and all these things. And Friday night, my son is up for probably 3 hours screaming about his ears, just screaming and screaming and screaming. So in the morning, I call the pediatrician. They didn't have anything open. Of course, it's Saturday. Of course, he gets it on a Friday night into Saturday. So they have a short day on Saturday. There was no appointments. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You know, great. We just get to be home. You know, I don't have to go anywhere, which is always my goal. And then later that day, he starts saying his whole side of his head is hurting. His ears are still hurting. And so I'm like, oh, I do have a strong value in making sure that my son is okay. And so where I would have normally have said, you know, we're not going anywhere, I decided that we're going to load up the car and go to the worst possible place ever in the wintertime, which is immediate care, and make sure that my kid was okay. No offense, immediate care. But, you know, kids have to lick the walls when they go to these places, literally lick the floors to this place where people go when they are ill, right? And so we got him checked. But it was funny because he was screaming at me all night. Well, not screaming at me, but screaming because he was so in pain, crying the following day. It became a really high value. And so because of that, I figured out a way to get it in our schedule when it wasn't convenient. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't even what I had in mind of what to do. Like it wasn't how I wanted to connect with my kids that day. But it was really, really important because I had that big priority, because it was screaming at me. This literal earache was screaming at me. So you can also find ways to remind yourself of like, why are you exercising? Maybe it's having picture, like your phone screen, be a picture of your favorite golf course. That's a really great reminder of why you're showing up to this thing. Maybe your grandkids, maybe your kids, maybe, you know, the place you're gonna go to travel this summer. But remember that when you value something enough, you find a way to make it a priority enough. And when you do that, that means it has to get in your schedule.
Absolutely. That is so true. All right. So we have our rocks. All right. Our first way of scheduling is with rocks. And we have time scheduling, which is saying 1 p.m., you know, on this day, this is when I'm doing it. And then we have event scheduling, which is after this event or before this event. That's already a rock in my schedule. That's when I'm going to go work out. I'm going to work out before work starts. I'm going to work out after work starts. I'm going to work out before breakfast. I'm going to work out after breakfast. So we have our rocks with time scheduling and event scheduling. All right. Now, the other way to go about scheduling is what we call being a filler. All right. And a filler is you look at your schedule in advance and you say, Wednesday at noon, I'm open. Okay, cool. I'm going to fill in that open spot with a workout. Friday at 3 p.m., I'm open. Okay, cool. I'm going to fill in that open spot with a workout. And so it's not something that is set in your schedule like a rock, but it does still get in your schedule in advance, okay? Here's the challenge to this though. The in advance part is the important part, meaning don't look at your schedule the day of and think, oh gosh, like when am I going to find a workout this week, okay? Sometimes even looking at your schedule like the week of is still, because guess what happens? Things fill up your schedule when there's open space. So if you're not going to have it set in your schedule that like, okay, on this day at this time, you know, consistently, this is when I'm working out, or before this event or after this event, this is when I'm working out. If you're just going to fill in your schedule, you need to be looking far enough advanced in your schedule that, or far enough in advance in your schedule that there's actually some open space, okay? If you're looking a week out and you're like, I'm fully booked, I'm not working out next week, you know, you may need to go to 2 weeks out. You may actually even need to go to a month out and say, okay, like when is there free time in my schedule and then start to put it in. And then fill in your schedule with your workouts way, way in advance. You might be thinking, does that mean I need to wait a month to get my workouts in? Maybe, maybe not. But I'd rather have you scheduling your workouts a month in advance than to say, oh, well, I can't see anything this week, so I'm just not going to work out this week. And then the same story comes up next week and the week after. And then the month goes by because the month's going to go by anyways. And then you're sitting there and you're saying, yeah, no, I'm just too full. I don't have, I have time a month from now, but yeah, I'm not going to put it in my schedule there. Put it in your schedule. Put it in your schedule. And that's how it will actually get done.
That's right. It's almost like when you think about this, you want to think of it as this is the system that I use to get my workouts in. Because we're all going to have an off day where your workout gets missed because there was something crazy that came up, your washer machine is overflowing with bubbles or whatever, and you missed your workout that day. But if it's a regular occurring thing that every week you're just way too busy to get in your workout, well then you don't have the right system in process to make sure that you're getting in your workouts. And so yes, things will always come up. Your kid might need you last minute. You might have to go to a last minute doctor's appointment. You might have to schedule. And that is okay every once in a while because that happens to all of us. But the thing is that if it's happening over and over and over again, and the over and over and over again is what kills your consistency, it's not the one-off time. It's the over and over again that steals your consistency, which is how you get results. So creating a better process. So maybe that means every Saturday, you sit down and you schedule for the week ahead. Or maybe that is 2 weeks in advance. You sit down and schedule. And that also means that you're saying no to other stuff, especially stuff that can be changed. One example that Charlie and I run into is like when we record this podcast, we both have to be available and here at our studio to record. And so if it's not scheduled beforehand, it is very likely that we both get booked up serving clients, doing other tasks, and we're unable to record at a good time. And so, maybe we're rushing to get one done, or we have to schedule 2 or 3 in a week because we missed the last week. Our system didn't work well. And so creating those systems to make sure that you ensure your consistency, and then if that one-off thing happens, that's fine. But if it's happening over and over again, it's better to check into how am I getting this scheduled? How am I prioritizing this? Because it's clearly just not working.
Absolutely. And for, 2 people who work with a number of people who schedule with us every single week, we have had the opportunity to see kind of these systems in play for many people for a long period of time. Julie, you have some clients that we know every Tuesday at this time, that client is going to be in. And sure, every once in a while, something comes up in the schedule and they're not able to come in, and they're either going to pick it up the next week or they will try to fill it in another time, okay? You also have clients who are just as consistent and it ends up being a filler for them. But those clients are scheduling literally weeks and months in advance. They will go as far into your schedule as they can see and be like, okay, this day at this time works for me. This day at this time works for me. And it's different. Every single week is different every single month, but they're going way, way out in the schedule to be able to do that. So we see that both of these systems work for all types of people, okay? The important thing is one, you need to figure out what works for you, and then 2, you actually need to do it, okay? And you need to do it on a regular basis because, again, over the last 15 years of working with people who have had to schedule with us to, get in our schedule, coordinate their schedules, and everything else that's going on in life, the one thing that is common among all people who stay consistent with their workouts, with getting their body worked out with MAT, with prioritizing, getting their workouts and everything like that. The one thing that's consistent is that they schedule it. And for some people, it's a rock. And that rock is a time-scheduled rock. It's the same time, same day, every single week. Some people, it's an event-scheduled rock. It's before an event, after an event, okay? Some people, it's a filler. And for people that it's a filler, they're looking a week out, 2 weeks out, 6 weeks out, 12 weeks out. They are saying, okay, this is when it's going to work for me to do it at this time. And then they put it in their schedule. That is the one commonality among people who get their workouts in on a consistent basis. So if you're struggling with that, if you're like, I don't know how to get my workout in on a consistent basis, the thing that you have to do, that all people who work out consistently do, is you have to schedule your workouts. So if you're hearing this right now and you're like, okay, well, this is great. I can definitely, schedule my workouts. But what in the world do I do once I start to do that? Like, I can see that I have the time in my calendar. How do I go about, making sure that I'm, following the right exercises, doing them in the right order, the right way, everything like that? That's what we help you to do within the Exercise for Life membership. Now, the great thing about the Exercise for Life membership, it is available on demand on your computer, on your tablet, on your smartphone. If you have a smart TV, you just need internet access and you can access all of the programs, all the workouts, and we lay out for you exactly what you need to do. In fact, we recently released a brand new feature where you choose the goal that you have for your workouts, and then you automatically get 6 months of programming designed for you. And just every single, multiple times throughout the week, you get an email that says, hey, here's your workout for today. Go to this program, do this workout, here's the equipment that you're going to need. And you don't have to think about it. You just enter in your email address, you select your goal, you enter in your email address, and it just gets sent right to you. And so it takes all the decision making out. You don't need to make those decisions because we're guiding you through it every step of the way, utilizing the 4 Exercise for Life principles, making sure that you are using those with every single set, every single rep of every single exercise within each of the workout programs. Now, you can get 30 days to all of this, all the programs, all the workouts, all that guidance for free when you go to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com. You just sign up there, you'll get 30-day free trial, and you'll be able to start working out in ways that build your health, build your strength, build your function without leaving you achy, sore, or injured. And then you can start to figure out, okay, like, here's my rocks. Here, maybe I'm going to do a filler. This is where I'm going to time schedule. This is what I'm going to event schedule. And you can get it in consistently and conveniently from your own home in under 25 minutes using minimal equipment. So again, the URL for that to get 30 days access for free is www.exerciseforlifestudios.com. And if you're feeling like, I would really like to start working out, but I got some aches and pains that are just holding me back, that's what we can help you with muscle activation techniques. So if you're in the Chicagoland area or willing to travel to the Chicagoland area, that is our specialty here at Muscle Activation Schaumburg. You can see our availability and get on our schedule by going to www.matschaumburg.com. On our website, there's a big green button that says Get Started. Just click that and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that keeps telling themselves, I'm going to start working out, and then something comes up, and then another something comes up, and then another something comes up, and they never actually get around to working out consistently? Share this episode with them so they can understand the importance of this one thing, that if they do it, it will make it far more likely that they're able to exercise on a consistent basis for the long term. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to us and leave us a rating and review. Not only does it help people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise, it also helps them find our podcast when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us a 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.